Business owners, guess what? Your business can run without you. I know that's such a foreign concept for many of us to even consider. Business coach Kevin Weir steps us through that process today in this episode. And one of my favorite parts is at the end where he shares a piece of advice that came from one of his mentors that says, you can never change your mind until you make it up the first time. And he gives lots of concept as to what that means throughout this episode.
Why business coaching? Long story, and I'll try to keep it focused. So many years ago, I had a word spoken over to me that I would be a blessing to small business owners in the community I lived. At the time, I was in my master's in business administration course at Washington State University, and I always envisioned I would work in a Fortune 500 company. And so it just didn't fit for me at the time going, why am I being told that I'm going to be a blessing to small business owners? And I had an objective to work in large corporations. Well, time went on and I worked in Fortune 500 companies and realized that wasn't for me. And so I got into career coaching as a starting point and really loved the coaching concept. And then what happened is that I would have some clients in my career coaching program that would say, you know what, Kevin, I don't think I want to change careers. I want to buy or start a business. And so I was like, well, I have an MBA. How about I have a business coach you? And I had so much success with those clients that several of them said, you know what, I think you're not better at the business side coaching than you are at career coaching. So I just made a decision at that point, along with the fact that the company I was working for was starting to financially fail, that it was time to switch gears. And so I decided to become a business coach, and that's how I found ActionCOACH.
And what do you see most businesses struggle with?
I think a lot of businesses struggle, especially the owners themselves, struggle at where they put their time towards. A lot of business owners are working at things that really don't make a difference in their business. They're very good at firefighting. They're very good at getting things done, but they don't think strategically. And part of what I see with this is that when you're not thinking strategically and all you're doing is activities, you're going to eventually burn out, because without that level of growth and without that level of working on more important things in the business instead of just firefighting all day long, you're not going to last very long in business.
And is that indicative of mostly like people who are in business just without a team, or is that even more so with
that's even with a team? There's it's kind of interesting story is that I saw a website today of a business that does roofing, cleaning of roofing, and the title on their sort of tagline on their website says "an owner on site always," and that kind of struck me, because here's a business that is telling the entire world we have to have ownership on our job sites or the job is going to fail. And that's a recipe for disaster. And so I see this business marketing themselves, wanting to get more clients. That's great, but how are they ever going to get beyond that ability for the business to run by itself?
Okay. So for a business to run by itself, it's such a foreign concept for many people to even imagine that that's possible. Nor do many business owners want that. They love what they do. They love being part of the business. Why is that important, that a business can run by itself?
Because here's the thing. A business is designed to give you more life, not you give the business life. When people go into business, they usually have a dream. They want to do something more than what they were working at. And no matter what, in all the years I've been coaching, I've always asked, what was your dream of what you wanted your business to do for you? And a lot of them either said, well, I wanted to give me more money so I can enjoy things in life. But some of them didn't realize, and they just thought, well, I'm just going to grind it out. And so the whole idea is that your business really should be the servant of you. Here's the problem is a lot of business owners become the servant of the business. And one of the biggest reasons that businesses fail, a lot of people say, it's financial, they ran out of money. But a deeper reason that businesses fail is that the business owner burns out because they can no longer, on their own level of power, sustain the business.
And how do they not burn out? That's the $1 million question.
Well, how they not burn out is you have to create a structure in the business so that eventually others can run the business for you. You need to be able to, we always talk about scaling businesses up. And some people look at scaling business up and said, well, I don't want to go on like a publicly owned company. And that's not what we're talking about. Scaling the business means that you build systems, processes, hire people, bring them together to work for you so that they can accomplish 10, 20, 50, 100 times more than you can do with your own efforts. Because here's the thing, if everything is your own efforts, I will 100% guarantee that you will burn out because you cannot sustain that level of effort that long to make the business successful on your own efforts.
So for business owners listening, what's the process or steps that they should take to get to that point so they don't burn out?
So the first thing we have to take a look at is there's 4 main things that they at least initially need to look at. Number 1, they have to look at financial management. They have to look at, do I have numbers that I can read to make decisions on? Are you looking at profit and loss balance sheet statement of cash flows? Do you understand what they're telling you? Do you have enough financial controls in your business so that you just don't go, well, I got money in my account, I'm happy, and I have no money in my account, and I'm sad? Then once we got that going, we have to take a look at delivery mastery. Are you delivering your products and service with systematic consistency, or are you brilliant one day and lousy the next? I'll go back to the example of that roof cleaning company that said owner on every site. If the owner isn't on site, there's a good chance the service is lousy. So if you're brilliant one day and lousy the next, what does your customer remember? Lousy. Now, the other area we have to take a look at is time. How well do you use time? Are you using it on things that are going to make a long-range difference in the business, writing systems, doing training, developing processes, or are you just trying to keep, customers happy on your own efforts and hope and wish and pray nothing bad happens? And then we have to have the direction. Where am I taking my business? Because always remember this. I think it was Lewis Carroll who said this. If you don't know where you're going, all paths will lead you there. Where do you want to go with your business? What's that destination end point? Because here's the thing, you have to understand this, Michelle, is that 100% of business owners will exit the business because at least right now, the immortality pill has not been invented. So if we can tackle those 4 key elements initially, we create a foundation that you can build on to grow a successful business.
So don't most people have a vision for where they want to go? Why is that important?
Surprisingly not. Why? Because there's so many business owners who have been taught not to think big. They've been taught to just get by. They've been taught by others that, well, you don't want to get growing the business, getting rich is too hard to do. I actually had a friend of mine who started a construction business, and he had a couple of employees, and he let them go because they couldn't do as well as he did. And so he just would do everything himself. He was backed up months and months and months with backlogged jobs. He ended up closing the business down because he couldn't do it anymore. And so he never had a vision. He just used his business to support the basics in his life. I know him. I know him personally. Wayne, he's a great guy, but he ended up getting a divorce. He had to close his business down because he physically couldn't do the work anymore. And that's sad. I mean, how many businesses could grow and sell for multiple amounts, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, if you just put a few extra efforts into your business to get it to a point where you can sell it? And I don't think a lot of business owners understand that a vision is so important to give them direction and focus on where they want to go. They're just in survival mode.
What's a good question that business owners can ask to help them think bigger?
Why should I get to another level? And what would it mean personally for me? What would it mean for me as a business owner to achieve dreams that I never would have dreamed about? Great story. I had a client who was owning coffee shops. And one of the things I asked her about was, what does she love to do? And she said, I love to travel. I said, when's the last time you've taken a vacation to go traveling? And she goes, 15 years. And so I said, what would it mean to you if you could achieve that dream to get this business run by yourself so you could do that? And she says, that would mean everything to me. It took about 2 years, but she went on a 3-week vacation to the Mediterranean. And you know how many calls she got from her business while she was gone? 0. And so that's the whole idea here, is that we business owners need to be able to dream. They need to be thinking beyond where they are today. And that's not easy to do because we've been taught just struggle, do what was the struggle bus, or, hustle culture. You got to just hustle. You got to put those 80 hours and 90 hours a week in to get this business going and keep it going. That's a lie. You need to be able to build this business to a point where you don't have to put that level of hustle and struggle into your business.
I love that. Now, you mentioned financial mastery and knowing your financials in your business. I mean, a lot of business owners would hear that and say, I know my numbers, I'm good. But it's to what level? So what kind of level are you looking for businesses to actually know and understand their numbers?
I'll give you a good example of that, Michelle. Restaurant. So one of the things when I'm coaching a restaurant is I will take a look at an order. And let's say it's a menu item. And I ask, what's the profitability of that menu item? Well, I know what my gross profit is. And I said, that's great. I know your gross profit is about 30%. But what about that specific menu item? Do you know what that gross profit is? And if you don't know what that is, how can you then make the pricing adjustment? Because so many times we just go, I'm going to price it that much. And it could either be way overpriced or way underpriced. So understanding the margin rates on all of your offerings and not just the big picture of obviously it's important to know what your overall numbers are. But sometimes you have to get really granular so that hey, you know what? That item on my menu actually is a killer for me. It's the lowest gross profit and it doesn't sell well. And why am I keeping inventory around for an item that loses me money and won't really benefit me in the long term? Sometimes you have to focus things in your business to get the most profitability. So it's things like that, on a balance sheet. Do you understand the ratios on a balance sheet and what it means for your business? A lot of times, most business owners don't even know how to read a balance sheet.
What's an example of where you've seen just that kind of level of deep dive into financials and numbers for a business kind of create some massive kind of aha moments for business owners?
Oh, I'll give you a good example of that. One of my clients right now, who I've been working with for almost 5 years, is a Medispa. And one of the things we started taking a look at is the retail sales. And we started taking a look at, okay, how can we make more money on our retail sales? And so we started diving deep into, Okay, what's the margins on different products? What percentage of revenue in the spa comes from retail sales? What's our conversion rate? How often, breaking it down, how much does each esthetician sell? How many times are they asking to sell? What's the profit margins on the products that they are selling? And come to find out, these estheticians needed to be selling a lot more retail, but they weren't asking anybody. So when you take a look at basic measurements, just like how much retail sales does the average esthetician make or should make, and what are they doing? Now we can zero in on the solution. Is it going to be training? Maybe it's a brand change. Maybe we need to change brands in the spa to get more retail sales. But without that level of depth on asking the right questions and getting measurements and taking actions on them, we're just going to go, okay, well, this is how much we're spending. There's no part of good coaching is being the outsider, looking at things like that and going, you know what, I've worked with other Medispas before. That number is too low. It should be here. Why are we not getting to that question? And the owner goes, I had never thought about that before.
So how long does that process often take for businesses to kind of create that level of awareness or mastery across those 4 levels?
It depends upon the business owner. It really depends on how much effort they want to take in going that deep. It can be, so I've had some business owners that it took them only about 3 months to get the aha and really make a difference. I've had other business owners take 2 or 3 years to get there because they're swatting way too many flies and they're still they're still trying to put out fires all the time. And sometimes that takes a while for me to get them out of firefighting mode and into on the business things so they can do the deep dive, so they can ask the right questions to get the right answers, to get the right action steps to make the difference.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? So it can take 3 months, it can take 2 years. It's so great that you kind of work at the pace that works for the business. So,
Yeah, exactly. You have to understand that some business owners can move faster, some can move slower. I've always learned over the years that if you push somebody too hard, they're going to quit and give up. If you don't push them hard enough, they're not going to get the results that they need to get.
so when you've got business owners that are often, or CEOs, working on all of the aspects of the business, swatting all the flies, and what's the place to start for them to win back some time?
The biggest thing is who should be, the question I ask is, who should be doing a task that you're doing right now? And so I take a look and I do a time study on an owner. And I take a look at all the things that they're doing. And one of the things I ask the owner is, okay, you're spending X amount of time doing this task. Why have you not had somebody else or an outsource? A good example, bookkeeping. Why should the owner be doing the bookkeeping? Well, the excuse is I want to keep a track of my money. Well, that's fine, but why do you have to do it? If you are out there, here's a good example, even today with a coaching client. He has a huge amount of opportunity. If he goes out in the field, he could be selling 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 agreements for his food distribution company, but he's taken all of his time trying to deal with his bookkeeping issues. Well, it costs too much for a bookkeeper. Okay, wait a minute. If you hire a bookkeeper that frees up 12 hours a week, 15 hours a week, how much more could you sell out in the marketplace knowing what the demand is? He goes, probably about $2 million a year. Okay, so you're sacrificing $2 million a year in sales to save yourself $30,000 a year. And he was like, oh, wow, holy cow. Yeah. And so that's where we have to make that awareness really point blank clear that the way you spend time has a dramatic effect on the outcome of your business. And a lot of business owners have never reached that level of clarity.
So I get that and I want to role play this with you because I get that you can say, okay, well, if I bring on a bookkeeper, that's potentially going to increase my revenue by $2 million a year, that you've just given that example. But I'm not going to find a bookkeeper that's as good as me that's going to earn that extra $2 million a year. Like, no one can do it better than I can as the business owner.
Yeah. And you know what the answer is to that, Michelle? You're right. You're absolutely correct. No one can do it as well as you. But if you could find somebody who could do it at 95% of what you're doing now, what would that mean for you in doing other things? You
I don't
see,
think, does that person really exist? I don't think that person exists that could do even 95% as well as I can.
you know,
Not a,
here's the thing, Michelle. Part of that is you have to talk with a business owner about their perception of perfection. Now, you can do something perfect, but even if somebody isn't completely perfect, does it really make a huge difference in the long run? Another example, and this is from another coach, um, wooden furniture company. And when he did this, I love this story. This is way back almost 20 years ago. And basically, his business owner would spend about 2 hours sweeping the floor in the evenings. And so the coach said, "How much would it take to pay for that person?" "Oh, to somebody else, it was like about $10, $15 an hour. "So why do you do it?" He says, "I know exactly how to do it perfectly. Nobody else can." Well, what if you systematized it out? What if you wrote a system of all the things that you needed to do the sweeping, so that because he was telling me, it was telling this coach, if it doesn't sweat perfectly, the equipment will get damaged, and the equipment will $100,000 and all damaged. But you have to, and so the coach said, no, write a system of exactly how you do it, train a person to do it, let them do it, so that you can free that 2 hours a day, which is now that's 10 hours a week, to go out and do far more important $150 $200 an hour tasks. Well, guess what? Figured it out, hired the person, perfect, got it maybe 95, 96, 97% of the time, as well as the owner. Owner can do other things. So what you have to do is you have to help the owner understand that basically perfection is the enemy of excellence. And that's the key right there.
but not when you're hiring. You do want someone that's close to perfection when you're hiring. So it's like this is kind of where most business owners get stuck, isn't it? Because they do,
Yes.
we get in that, and I'm speaking for myself too. You do get in this place of no one can do it better than I can. I've perfected how to do it. It's the recruitment is next, or is it the system? You write the system for the task first, and then you recruit, and then there's a whole system around recruitment.
So you have to have the system in place
Okay.
as much as possible. Now, does it have to be perfect? No.
The first step that you've shared, just so we're clear, is understand what are the tasks that you are doing in your business,
Mm-hmm.
and then what of those tasks can you hire somebody else to do or outsource? Is that
That
right?
is correct. Absolutely. So, what are the tasks? What's the system to do the task? Then, who should I hire? Now, you might have a person inside the company that can do it. And, you can basically hire internally. Not always the case. So, you might have to go out and hire externally. Then, you have to recruit the person that fits the job. And here's the problem is that a lot of business owners do what I call the gut feel hire. They interview the person, they're like 5, 6, 8 people, they go, that one feels right, and they hire them. And then 90 days later, they're out the door. Why? Because you did not hire for fit. You hired off of your gut. And see, this is one of the things when I'm coaching clients, there's a process that I use with them that basically has a deselection process to get to that right person. We also do evaluations of that person to make sure, psychometric profiling, that they're a great fit. And then you have to have an onboarding process that brings that person on, not just orientation, but a true onboarding process that brings them up to speed so that they can integrate into the business.
And that's a big kind of black hole that a lot of business owners fall into. And I've been guilty of that, where you've just gone, okay, I'm out of time. I need somebody to take this on. And I just go hire that person. And often it doesn't work. I haven't supported them. I haven't built the system. And I haven't given them, because I'm still out of time, I haven't given them the time, the training, and Yeah, I see that. So,
Yeah.
okay, so you've given us a clear pathway on what the steps are and processes.
Yep.
What often, give me an example of what often, where businesses then get stuck at that point.
So what happens is they get stuck at a point where, okay, they've got things going, they've got things are running smoothly, it's profitable, and things are moving forward. Here's the thing is that you then, because that's where it stops. The business owner still shows up every day. Maybe they're not working 65, 75, 80 hours a week. Maybe they're back to 40. That's great. I can live with that. But they still show up 5 days a week. And that's where a lot of businesses get stuck. They've got into their comfort zones. They're out of the bleed. They're out of the burnout stage. They're back to being, okay, I can treat this as an 8 to 5 job. But that's where they get stuck. And now the next question is, okay, what's next? And that's where we have to go back to the question of your exit plan. Because as I said earlier, you will have a 100% chance of exiting your business. Let me give you a real life example. So, had a husband and wife, early 60s. They had been in this business for 30 plus years, and they had gotten really comfortable. Things were going great, but they realized, oh, geez, we're not getting any younger. So they came to one of my workshops. They spoke to me afterwards. And what we did is we started working at starting getting them out of the business, getting them out of their comfort zone because they were both in deep-seated comfort zones. And then we started going, okay, how do we add things in place that may seem very uncomfortable to you, but allow you to exit the business? Now, this is about a 3.5-year process to get them through this. And one of the things I did is I required them to take a 2-week vacation. And then about 8 months later, I had them take a 3-week vacation. And about another 9 months later, I required them to take a 4-week vacation. And then finally, we did a 5-week vacation. And they started realizing that, wait a minute, this business not only does not need me, but it's sellable. So guess what we did? They had made a very specific goal of selling their business on a very specific date. Guess what? They sold the business on that specific date 1 year earlier than what the goal was. Now they have sold the business. It's out of their hands. They have the retirement they always dreamed of. And now what's kind of interesting is they sold it to another individual in the community who now I'm coaching in that business because now he recognized that, hey, if they have a coach that got them to this level, I want, because he's got big visions, now I'm coaching him to take it to a whole nother level.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And what I was just wondering then as you were sharing that is, do most business owners not think about what it would look like when they're selling the business, or what a sale or exit would look like, because they don't know what they would do after?
I think part of that is true. A lot of business owners, their life is the business. They have an identity that they are the business owner. And we have to talk with them about when I first start coaching every client, I go through what I call an alignment. And one of the things I always ask is, what are your dreams? If you had unlimited time, unlimited money, what would you do? And once I got that going, I start saying, okay, imagining life where you're no longer the business owner, but you're living dreams. And that just blows people's minds because their identity is still a business owner. I mean, one of the things I tell them is like, I hate to say this, but you're going to have to change your identity from business owner to gleefully retired. Sometimes that doesn't compute with people. But always remember this, it's like, but do you, and I ask them this question, do you really want to die at your desk? Honestly, do you want to die at your desk? And they go, no. So guess what we're going to have to do? We're going to have to develop this business such that you do sell it, support your retirement, so you can change your identity to happily required in living real dreams.
Gosh, that is just such an important message. You know, I recently came across a book called Five Regrets of the Dying, And it was a lady who worked in palliative care, and she spent a lot of time with people who were, close to the end and the regrets that they have. And I love the message that you are not your business. That is so powerful. What would life be like without the business? And how can I build a business that can sustain the life that I want to lead when I want to retire on my terms?
Exactly right.
I feel like in the world today, we have less control over the terms that we want to live. But just following some of these simple steps and processes and getting a coach can really help you do that. Yeah.
Exactly right.
So perfect. Thank you. So let's say in a perfect world, we've got to a point in the business where we can take that 5-week vacation, the business operating without us, and sometimes that is an exit in mind for them. That's what's next. Sometimes they might want to scale it to the next level, like you've mentioned with the new owner. What's next for a business at that point in terms of scaling?
So when you're scaling a business, we have to put people in place that can run it for us, because the whole idea of scaling a business way beyond where you're at right now is to be able to think very strategically. So I'll give you an example of that. I had a client once, and he's still him and I have been working together on his business for quite a few years. And he was a CPA. And it's in the States, our federal taxes are due April 15th. Well, it's March 30th. And he emails me with a big subject line, help. And it says, Kevin, the business is running perfectly. All my tax return people are doing great. The bookkeeping's great. I'm in my office. I'm bored. And he puts down huge block letters, what's next? And so he was in the same building than I. And so I said, okay, we're doing an ad hoc coaching session. I said, congratulations, Jake. You've reached what we call results level. Business runs without you. Now, I know you well enough. You're going to monkey around where you shouldn't be monkeying around your business. So let's talk about, are you ready to retire? No, you're 33 years old. No, you don't. I know you well enough. So what is it that you want to scale up? What's the next thing? What's that big vision that you want to have? And so he came back and says, I want to buy another tax practice. And sure enough, he bought a tax practice double the size of his original one. And so we went through some challenges, got that running by itself. And same question is, what's next? So now I said, well, you sold the first one. You've got the second one running. What else is there? So he started getting into real estate and had some real estate ventures and did and started working with real estate agents on all sorts of things with their taxes. And so he even bought a massage therapy practice. And so the whole idea here is that he started understanding that he could have multiple businesses running all at the same time, as long as he applied the same principles to all these businesses that worked great. So the whole idea is, that the classic, well, what's next? If you're 65 years old, like this couple that I just recently worked with, you're not interested in scaling the business. If you're 33 years old, like Jake was, you are interested in scaling the business. And can that look like? His big vision is being a speaker. So he's out on this. He does a lot of speaking here on business taxes and all sorts of things. And so that's the whole thing. What is it that if you want to scale the business, and the generalized principles that you use to get your business this level, you can do that over and over and over again.
That's awesome. So coming back to full loop 360 down to what you talked about first in terms of destination, getting really clear what the end game is. That's also on a personal level, isn't it? Like you just mentioned Jake. Was speaking something that was kind of in his mind at the time that he went through this process?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And it was a lot of that. When I started coaching him, it was him and a part-time bookkeeper. That was it. And he had never thought about what it took to scale the business. And so as he scaled his business to get it run without him, he started seeing far more possibilities. And he realized that there's always ups and downs in business. But once he got that, hey, I can do this over and over again, it became almost addictive to him. He loves it. And maybe a lot of business owners don't realize once you learn to do something and you're successful at it, like scaling a business, and you do it again and again, it becomes absolutely a blast. Why is the term serial entrepreneur out there? Because there's a lot of entrepreneurs who figured out early how to do that and do it over and over again. And it's almost like an addiction, and it's fun. They enjoy it. But a lot of business owners go, how can that be enjoyable? Well, it is if you learn the generalized principles how to do it, apply it to your own business so you can do it again and again and again.
I love that you just said learn. That's a key word I want to talk about. Learn. They've learnt how. Now, there's a couple of different ways that you can learn, right? You can learn
Right.
from years of figuring it out on your own. What's some other ways they can learn?
So there's a lot of learning. You can read books. You can watch videos. You can go to workshops, seminars. Obviously, as your coach is going to teach you and give you knowledge and education. It depends upon how you learn. Some people learn to actually do it. Others are going to read books, and that works for the guy. Others are going to be very much audio learners. They listen to things. But the whole idea here, and my role as a coach, is to get knowledge inside of you, but knowledge has to be applied. Because always remember this, because I've heard this phrase before, well, knowledge is power. My response is absolute hogwash. Applied knowledge is power. There are PhD business professors in universities that know everything and can apply nothing. So real true education is not only the knowledge, you have to apply it, test it, experience it, and do it again and again and again.
So that's why I love our formula for success, the dreams times goals times learn times plan times action. Because we can have dreams and we can have goals, but the current version of us doesn't know how to go and do that, to achieve those goals and dreams. So learning's a big takeaway from our session today.
Yep, absolutely.
So Kevin, 3 questions I'd like to wrap up with.
Sure.
What's the best book that you've ever read?
I would say Awesomely Simple by John Spence. Now, interesting story behind that. Back when I had the firm a number of years ago, we would have a theme book every single year. And one year we're sitting around the table and saying, what would be our theme book for this coming year? And our support specialist, person who's our admin, she was like 20, 21 years old. And she goes, well, I've got a great book. It's Awesomely Simple by John Spence. And we had heard of that book before. It's like, oh, really? What made you decide to pick up that book? She says, John Spence is my uncle. Whoa! So we all read the book. We were blown away by how brilliant it's written. And he did a video for our growth club introducing himself and said, hey, since you are part of the Spokane Growth Club, reach out to me, and as long as you base in Spokane Growth Club, I'll talk with you and we'll figure out how to help your business. Great guy. So Awesomely Simple has got to be one of my favorite books. John Spence.
Best mentor or coach for you throughout your career?
I would say there's 2 of them. Number 1, Dr. Bernard Haldane. And it's hard to see, but he's a picture of him and me behind me. And Dr. Haldane was the founder of Bernard Haldane Associates, where I started my coaching career. And he was in his late 80s, early 90s. And I would meet with him, and he would just bring an amazing amount of wisdom. Talk to me the things that here I am, I'm a 35-year-old, young adult coaching much older people. And he imparted so much knowledge in me and gave me so much confidence in doing that. And the other person is Brad Sugars. Brad has been an amazing mentor, knowledge source. He's got one of the most practically business-minded. He doesn't sit there with highfalutin ideas, but his ideas are so actionable It's amazing how you sit there and going, I didn't realize you could do that. So Dr. Haldane and Brad Sugars.
And best piece of advice that you've ever received?
I have to give this one to Dr. Haldane. Great story. So him and I are in a mentoring session with each other, and I'm coaching. And one of the frustrations I was having is that I was told him, like, Dr. Haldane, he goes, I'm just really frustrated because I can't get my clients to focus. They always want to flip-flop around and change their minds, and I can't get them to make a decision on which direction they want to take their career. And he leans back, and he in his kind of his older British accent, he goes, Mr. Weir. And I said, yes, Dr. Haldane. He goes, you can never change your mind until you make it up the first time. Blew me away. And I use that phrase right there to this day with clients to help them focus, because so many people can't make decisions. And when I give them the old Dr. Haldane adage of you can never change your mind until you make it up the first time, that frees them to be decisive.
Okay, so I need to ask you a little bit more about that. Okay, so
Sure.
What would that look like in an example?
So a good example of that is, what does your business look like when it's finished? When you are ready to exit the business, what do you want it to look like when at the end? And I get this so many things from my clients. I don't know. Well, we start throwing out ideas. Is it this size, this size, this size? And they're afraid, well, I just don't know, Kevin. Well, and I said, it's hard for me to make a decision on that. And I said, well, again, you can't change your mind until you make it up the first time. So if your vision right today is a $10 million business with this amount of employees and this level of market penetration or whatever, can that change over time? Of course it can. But if you never make up your mind right now, you will be stuck at your current level.
So much wisdom and learning today. Kevin Weir, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle, and I really enjoyed spending time with you today.
Michelle Adams, your host here. Hats off to you for committing to your learning by listening to this podcast. And if you'd like some help implementing some of these strategies, then click the link in the description to find your local action coach. They can help you put these strategies into action and take your business and your life to the next level. In the meantime, like and subscribe so that you're the first to get our next episode. We'll see you soon.